Okay, we'll make a start. So welcome everybody to our final webinar for the year. So this one will be our year in review, so 2025. So a bit of housekeeping before we start. So this webinar, like all of ours, are being recorded. So all attendees will receive an email with a link to the recording as described there. If you also go into BGL's YouTube channel, so if you go to YouTube and search for BGL, all of our prior recordings or basically any webinar that we've ever done over the past few years is stored there. You're able to view it any time. It's great for obviously team member training. And of course, if you've got any questions, we love all the good questions. So please enter them there in the Q&A and we'll come down to the end. So if anyone hasn't met me before, my name is Jeevan, and I'm joined as always by CEO and co-founder of Smart SMSF, Aaron Dunn. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Jeevan. Good to be here. Good to see we've got our Christmas hats on the slides as well.
That's right. I think yours looks slightly better fitting than mine, but we won't
They're
talk.
both big.
Cool. So the format for today is normally we just go through month by month and we just describe what's actually happened in terms of Simple Fund 360 and Simple Invest 360. And then Aaron will describe what's obviously happening in either the SMSF industry or for Smarter SMSF. So January 2025. So there within obviously BGL's products, we did several improvements for consolidated reporting. So if you're obviously a Simple Invest subscriber, you will get access to that consolidated reporting. If anyone doesn't know what that feature is, it's the ability to group, I guess, either client groups, related groups, family groups, and obviously, as the name suggests, produce reports both on screen and to PDF, which are for all the entities combined. We also then very minor change to the entity dashboard. So it's a fund dashboard for SMSFs or the entity dashboard for obviously funds, sorry, for trusts and companies is ability there to do an ABN validation. So quickly it will describe whether the ABN is valid against the ABR web services, and then we'll also provide that link that you can click on. If the entity is registered for GST, we'll also show the GST registration as well. On to February 2025. So open banking, we released this to everyone. So open banking, for again, anyone who's unfamiliar with this, it is the ability to get a data feed from any bank in Australia, which holds a banking license. So that's over 110 different institutions. It allows us to get history back from 2018. It also allows us to get obviously all the transactions, all the balances, and usually it's anything that the client has access to with their internet banking services. So that includes term deposits, loans, etc. With that service, the authority process is done online and by the client. So it's all governed by the ACCC, and it's a secure service. So if you are looking for more information there, obviously reach out to our team who can guide you through that process. We also added CFS Edge to our wrap feeds as well. So if you do have any clients who are using CFS Edge through their advisor, you can obviously get through those daily transactions as well. On to March. So March is obviously always a busy time. And I think in Feb, I'm not sure if I put in a slide, Feb, Aaron, correct me if wrong, was also the SMSF Association National Conference.
In
So
February, yes, it was.
it was February this year, wasn't it? Yes. So normally I have a slide for that and didn't include that one there. Property dashboard. So we added a brand new screen there, the property dashboard. So that replaced the previous dashboard, provided a lot more information, as you can see there on screen, bits and pieces. And we actually, obviously, a better interface allowed you to see which properties had valuations for the year or not. And obviously the information there you can export to screen. We also improved the integration there over the year between the valuation providers. So we are going through and obviously going with the valuation providers for some, rolling out a service which is, I suppose, removing the need to actually key in things such as the address. It'll grab it automatically from BGL and send that through. In 2026, what we're also looking for is the ability to also, what we'll be releasing is the ability to also order title searches as well. BGL also ran our masterclass around the country during March. So the masterclass, for anyone who's unfamiliar with it, it is basically how to use, or basically best practice in using BGL products. So that we've got the guys on the left-hand side, and I think there's a few others missing there, who actually went around the country to all the major cities, showed that learning center. So I've got a slide later on, which is around the what's the dates for next year and how you can register that for next year. It is run face to face, but we also do run a virtual one as well. So virtual being via webinar. Aaron, over to you. What happened in
Yeah,
March?
so you'll probably see a bit of a common thread as we go throughout this year, particularly on that top line item, because as we sort of moved into the year, there was very much a question mark as to what was going to happen with Division 296 tax. We'd seen a strong voter block of crossbench senators blocking that legislation, and we knew that we were coming up to an election that was going to shape how those or how that legislation may or may not proceed. What we then also saw, which was a pleasant surprise, was the release of regulations to allow for the commutation of legacy pensions. And we've now done hundreds of these for clients, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through, as we built out some specific products to be able to support people there. And then, as we always find out at the start of that year, we got confirmation around the CPI figures, which then confirmed the increase of that transfer balance cap from what was 1.9 up to $2 million. And we also noted that we didn't see the wages growth, so WOTI, so therefore our $30,000 cap for concessional contributions and 120 ultimately remained the same for that financial year that we're in right now.
Beautiful. And the SMSF Day, 10 years.
Yes. So we got to celebrate the 10th edition, and BGL has been a supporter of that since day one. So again, a range of topics, obviously, that we cover throughout that day. We do those in March/April ourselves, subject to when Easter falls typically. But you can see there a lot of it is around the technical content, what's current in the industry, and we do it pretty much in a case study type format. So it allows for people to engage and understand the different topics, noting that we get accountants and financial advisors and administrators and auditors. So that understanding of specific topics and the activities that we drive is part of the success and why we're moving into our 11th year in 2026.
Beautiful, beautiful. And yeah, those sessions are excellent. So I highly recommend to anyone who's looking to obviously increase their knowledge. And I think obviously going into the new year with changes on the horizon, I think it's very, very relevant.
Very much front and center. Yep.
So April, there across both products, we had our new sidebar menu, which is accessible, and it's an option that you can be turned on a user by user basis. So if you go to the app switcher, if you click on your profile in the top right hand corner, there's a settings option there that allows you to enable this, and you can always switch back to the classic menu if you find it's not for you. But it's been designed with a lot of using a lot of data analytics from what firms are actually using, and then improve flow. So the feedback from users who are utilizing this at the moment has been quite positive. We also released a new report, which is the asset allocation by investment. So as the name suggests, I think it's pretty obvious what it is, but just another report which is available there. So if it is something you're looking to utilize, just search for that name there in the report screen. Aaron, over to you.
Yeah, so we then had our federal budget, which got pushed early, noting that we then had a federal election called. So ultimately then for those outstanding measures like Div 296 tax meant that we went into caretaker mode, and therefore a lot of that legislation that wasn't resolved went by the wayside. And off the back of that, we needed to then wait and see what transpired before we knew what was ultimately going to happen next. And it should be noted that around that point in time, we did see a fairly comprehensive update right across all the SMSF content on their website. So take the time to, as you're going through, to understand what the ATO has done across that. A lot of fantastic insights off the back of that refresh that they did earlier this year.
So over to May. So I think May, by memory, was a busy one for BGL. So traditionally, it's when we do the SMSF tax changes, etc. So we released BGL ID into Simple Fund 360 and Simple Invest 360. So if you're not familiar with what it is, it's the ability to request basically a client's ID verification through obviously the three options you can see there on screen. This allows you, obviously, as part of the Tax Practitioners Board, I suppose, requirements to actually identify your clients. And just a reminder, obviously next year the AML Tranche 2 changes are coming in and affect most accounting firms. So if you're not familiar with what those changes are, or would like to look up more, again, go to BGL's YouTube channel, just search in there for AML. We've got several webinars which are available there, which cover the topic. So it's obviously a lot to I think each of those webinars are over an hour because there's a lot there to actually cover. But obviously most accountants, I think it's legal professionals and real estate agents are affected by this. So it's important that you look at this sooner rather than later. We also released a new lodgement screen, so it should have an N at the end. So this obviously replaced the previous screen and provide the ability for all the stats across your practice. Obviously, there was additional filters and bits and pieces that were made available. We then released some features later on during the year, which I'll cover in just a second. SMSF tax time changes. So I think by memory there was no changes whatsoever. So it was quite a boring year in terms of tax changes. It doesn't cut down the work for software providers, but it's definitely no impact in terms of legislation changes. But it'd be interesting to see obviously what occurs next year.
Even I was going to say, be careful what you wish for there.
Yeah, exactly right. So I predict some changes there to the members section, but we'll wait and see.
I can tell you there are going to be changes to the members section.
Exactly. So with Macquarie's CMA accounts, those that are using, I suppose, the ESI or the automated feed through BGL service, now have the automatic ability for PDF statements to be imported every 6 months. So that's on by default. Macquarie are also looking, they've still got there on the agenda, the ability to also have that for advisor-based ones as well. So they're just working out some of the T's and C's, but that should be available as well. Something we also released, I think the screenshot's wrong, but the ability to change firms. So if you do have access to multiple firms or practices at BGL, you can now switch firm or switch license directly there from the app switcher. So the little icon in the top right hand corner, which has got the 9 dots, if you click on that, you can change practice very easy. Over to you, Aaron.
Yeah, well, as we know, Albo not only won, he won quite comprehensively. So that clearly flagged the fact that Div 296 was on the back burner. And I note that this is not a conversation that was just relevant throughout 2025, but this was something that was announced back in February of 2023. So this is how long this has been going on, and really very quickly raised the concerns that Labor not only controlled the House, but effectively had the ability to control the Senate with the collective support of the Greens. So that crossbench block that was so important to stop those measures dissipated. And therefore, it very much became a question of, well, what would the Greens really want to try and do to get these measures through? And even though we are now at a version 2.0 that I'll naturally talk about shortly, there is still very much this question of how is the Greens going to, are they going to give passage, or are they going to just needle for a couple of other little things themselves, noting that historically they wanted that number reduced in terms of the $3 million down to $2 million. But I should also note that they did get originally the superannuation on paid parental leave introduced as part of the commitment for version 1.0 of those Division 296 tax measures. So 2026 will see a little bit play out on this. And again, I'll touch on version 2.0 shortly. And the other thing here, as I touched on earlier with the legacy pension requirements, given that a lot of these, we know that clients might have one or two of these, we've only found a couple of firms that have got 15 or 20 of these things. So what we ended up doing is we've built inside our document platform what we call our legacy pension hub. So that gives you the ability to go and access the documents that we've built. Some of those we have an online form, such as the market link pension commutation integrated with Simple Fund 360, but we also built some manual forms for you to request either a market link pension or defined benefit pension to be able to do those things as well. So we did run a session earlier this year, and again, that session is up on the BGL YouTube channel if you want to find out more. Otherwise, you can connect to the platform and then go in and get access to that information through the Legacy Pensions Hub as well. And we've built calculators in there. We've got all the reference material, whether it's from the initial legislation through to the social security impacts that we've only seen finalised in November this year.
Okay, so on to the end of the financial year, which is June 25. So we obviously released the indexation changes that affected obviously T-bar and the transfer balance cap, or total super balance, as seen there. So I guess it was the methodology of the indexation hasn't changed. It was just obviously increasing and affected those more so that haven't quite utilized their cap, and they have that in between. So obviously you have the prorated amount. The 2025 trust and company tax changes were released there for Simple Invest as well. So one thing which we announced, I think, the previous year, but actually released, was the ability to utilize their AI assistants. So those AI assistants are available there from the little robot icon at the top. So actually, no, I think it's just switched over to the Ronnie icon at the top now. So those various assistants, as you can see there on screen, I think there's a couple more that which are now available. They allow you to utilize, I suppose, generative AI, but also combine with your Simple Fund and or Simple Invest data. So that's why the assistants have their multiple, different topics, and they've got those purpose. And obviously, a good one there is Div 296 calculations. That are really just a rough estimate because we don't have the final legislation there, but at least you can see the potential impact for clients that have a balance over that amount. So then, and obviously the other ones there, some of them are sort of really data mining across the practice versus the ATO assistant, which is really just asking questions against the ATO website. So you will see more and more of these assistants release. And we are going to combine these into one basically agent. So you'll be able to ask any of those questions that you ask now to the individual assistants. You'll be able to ask those to one agent at some stage in 2026 there as well. So onto July, we keep releasing, I guess, more assistance. So obviously, we've touched on the Div 296 one as well. So again, as you can see there on screen, that was probably using the previous ones there, but it just obviously gave you that rough estimation of the potential impact there to the clients. And obviously it's, total that just a projection and a good, I guess, conversation starter. But as I think Aaron advised several times during the year, don't make any haste decisions or rush into things because we're still waiting to see the actual legislation. With our work papers that are built into Simple Fund 360 and Simple Invest 360, we obviously released a spreadsheet component, as you can see there on screen, that providability there for basic calculations and the ability to copy and paste for external spreadsheets you may have. Obviously with BGL, we also now are, I guess, developing the work papers which are built into Xero. So if you are a Xero user, you are, I suppose, every practice now, or every, I think it's bronze partner and above, is able to get access now to those Xero work papers. ATO interest, so we made some changes to the more details panel there on the transaction screen and the smart matching screen. to support, I would say, those additional either payments or amounts received potentially there, so that you're able to enter all those into one transaction with ease. The property dashboard we enhanced, and you now have the ability, for example, where the property is self-managed in terms of the property management. You're able to issue invoices there to I suppose in respect from the agent to the lessee, to actually then go through. And then we release some enhancements later in the year, which support the ability then for transactions to be matched. Called there. And I think there's enhancements coming soon which allow for recurring invoices as well. The actual lodgement screen, so this was enhanced obviously several times over the year. So first of all, as we showed earlier, we've actually replaced what was seen there on the screen. The next one, we actually then connected to some of the ATO's web services and provide the ability there to actually download data. So as you can see from this basic one, you can see a comparison about what's actually stored on the ATO side versus what's stored there in the BGL side as well. So you can actually see any mislodgements, etc. This also includes all form types. So even if BGL doesn't support that particular form type, if the entity has an outstanding lodgement or has lodged any type of form, they will be displayed here on this particular screen. Wrap extraction. So this was something which has been heavily utilized. So where we can't actually get a data feed, or where you're looking to store transactions as a single line investment within your BGL product, you can now upload the actual end of year PDF directly here into the wrap statement extractor. As you can see there on the right hand side, extracts all the figures out and shows you where they're actually going to be posted to. You can verify all the information, and then automatically it will post there as one journal with the transaction, so with the document attached to the transaction. So obviously saves a lot of time deciphering statements that can be up to hundreds of pages, finding out exactly what the figures are. If you, on the right hand side where you've got the little search icon, you can actually click on that and it will actually show you where in the document it's actually found that figure. So it makes the review process quite, I suppose, simple and easy. So this is actually found there on the feed management screen. Aaron, over to you.
Yeah, so 1 July, we saw a number of key changes. Obviously, we've spoken about the increase to the general transfer balance cap there, but we also did see the increase, so that final iteration of the SG increase up to 12%. There are a number of other thresholds that were worth noting there. Of course, making sure we were adjusting for the LRBA safe harbour as well. So it was as high, got to 9.35%, dropped down back to 8.95%. And really important that May month every year, that publish rate is the rate that is relevant from that regard. And as I said earlier, we saw, based upon those CPI figures, ultimately the awardee figures, I should say, that the concessional and non-concessional amounts stayed the same for that particular year. And then the other things, I guess, that were just worth noting there, we did see, of course, the second time I think it was, that our unused amounts started to drop off. So it's the old adage, if you don't use it, you'll lose it in that regard. And then again, there were just a number of things that we were needing to be conscious of as we go through the financial year ahead. Of course, noting that some clients might have moved up in minimum percentage brackets, and I'll talk about shortly the finalised ruling around 2013/5 on when a pension commences and ceases, and the importance of getting that minimum pension correct.
Okay, on to August. So obviously within BGL's products, we had a data feed there directly with Beta Shares. So Beta Shares released an offering that allowed, obviously, those, I suppose, investors, including SMSFs, to invest in their ETFs directly through their platform. We also, the slide's outdated, that one there. So around the country, we presented BGL's RegTech conference series. Is that follow-up slide? Whoops. So it is face-to-face, so that's the one from the year before, but it's a face-to-face I guess, conference, which talks about really accounting technology. So again, we normally, if anyone who hasn't seen that, we normally host that in, normally it's July, August. Again, dates depending on when venues are available around the country. So, look out for that if you haven't attended there.
Yep. So, Jevon, I might get you to sort of, rather than worrying about talking about each of the segments, I might just get you to tap through this. But one of the key things here was this was the first year that we saw the full impact of the Commissioner's revised views around when a pension ceases. And what I'm specifically talking about here is where we fail the minimum pension in a year. Because what the ATO states now in this finalised ruling is not only do we lose ECPI in the year in which that pension failed, and we know that all those payments that are taken out are lump sums for that year, but the loss of exemption will continue to apply until such a time that there has been a conscious and ultimately prospective decision to actually commute that income stream. So now that loss of tax exemption can be much further, and therefore there are a series of additional steps that you need to take to ensure that the pension ceases and therefore a new pension is commenced that will only then allow for that new pension to obtain ECPI in that subsequent year. And of course, once that pension's restarted, then the pro rata and stuff will be relevant there as well. So this is probably one of the most critical things that we've seen this year. Probably it really, as I said, it was released the year before, but it's the first year that we've seen this in play. Historically, you could just kind of do this automatic reset at 1 July and move on. And I think the other thing that's just worth noting here is to think that you can fix this at 1 July, backdate documents, or rely upon a deed that might even allow you to do that. I think you're putting yourself in a lot of danger. So what is a commutation is very specifically defined within 2013-5, and it talks about the fact that it must be prospective and it must be a conscious decision. So if you work out in the financial statements that you're preparing for a client today that pension hasn't been met, well, then the earliest you're really going to be able to do that commutation would be the 1st of October. Why is it the 1st of October? Because our next T-bar date is the 28th of July. We can't take ourselves any further back without exposing ourselves to failure to lodge penalties. And I know people say, well, has the ATO ever sort of penalised anyone on that? At some point, we know that will change. But the auditors are spending a lot of time looking at this as well and raising concerns whether that due process has occurred from a commutation standpoint as well. So there's a few moving parts in here, but this is the revised process, and therefore making sure you understand what the flow of information needs to look like if you have a client that fails that minimum, of course, beyond what would be the potential minimum pension shortfall, where it will be less than 1/12 in a particular year. And the other thing that's just worth noting, we spend a lot of time updating our course content every year. So we now have up on the BGL Learning Channel the revised SMSF Foundations course through to July 2025. And we're working through a bit of a rewrite on our Essentials course at the moment, and that will be updated into the Learning Channel early in the new year. But also important to note that if you do complete any of our courses, not only do you get the benefit of the learning, but you also get the access to a complimentary period of membership with the SMSF Association up to 12 months as a affiliate member with the Foundations course or associate membership with the Essentials course.
Hey, September. So from BGL perspective, there was no major features, but we released a whole bunch of, I suppose, enhancements. I'm not going to go through and read them all out there, but as you can see there was, quite a few. But Div 296, what happened there?
Yeah, so this is when we started to hear the murmurings of what's going on here, because they were very much in the mode of rolling this out. And then we started to hear the Prime Minister's office starting to get involved. And then the language from the Treasurer was, well, we don't seem to be in any hurry about this, which started to pique our interest in the industry and wondering what was going on. And then next month, we know things changed and changed quite substantially.
Well, let's go on to the next month. So there within BGL, we released for SMSF's a new member dashboard. So obviously had a much cleaner interface, more I guess, or the lodgement dashboard, I should say more so, the ATO view. We actually then enhanced the web services that we had access to. So internet was playing up. The web services that we had access to. So the ability there for you to enable the option to download documents as part of that process. So that's any sort of correspondence document. So example might be pay-as-you-go installments or outstanding amounts. And that can come in and it's basically stored directly there into the document screen and can be accessed. So that is an opt-in thing, so it won't be downloaded automatically. So if you go to the lodgement screen to the ATO view, you'll see an option there for documents to enable. And as you can see on the screen, depending on how many entities you have access to, how many documents, it can take up to 48 hours to do that initial sync of documents. Into November, so the member dashboard we enhanced and had the ability there to allocate pension amounts for unallocated amounts, and there was a couple options as you can see on screen to just either meet minimums or both meet minimums and put the excess to the lowest tax-free accounts, or in contra the highest taxable component accounts going through. For Simple Invest, so for trust companies, individuals, we released the ability for entities to be transferred from one license to another. So that feature was available within Simple Fund already. So it's just extended there to Simple Invest.
And as I said, things change. So there's been very much a common theme throughout the legislative framework that's been updated during the year. And ultimately, the Treasurer fell on his sword around some key changes. So the big things, naturally, were the lack of indexation and the taxation of unrealised gains. So what's important to remember with this at the moment is we don't have anything other than the 6-page fact sheet. And off the back of that, a lot of the discussion that's happening and what you're reading is either what is being published through the fact sheet and the announcements that are being made, and some sort of interpretation based upon what we know from the first version. What I can share with you is that there is closed consultation happening with Treasury at the moment. So a lot of that information the Treasury has been working through and drafting, in essence, an exposure draft that will come out prior to Christmas. So whilst the Treasury might be able to relieve themselves of that responsibility this side of the new year, it does mean people like us will have to enjoy that reading over the Christmas break and get ourselves right up to speed with what's going on from a Div 296 tax point of view. So again, just to reaffirm here, there's no change to the fund level taxation, but what we will have is a Division 296 tax at the member level. Now, rather than it being just impacted on individuals with only 3 million, there will be that additional 15% imposed on individuals that are at 3 million, but then there will be a further 10% or effectively 25% on those above $10 million. So all of this is going to be an after the fact, so after the financial year calculation with this. There's a lot of nuance, I guess, in how that design is being made at the moment. I have been privy to some of that. So it will be quite interesting to see where all this ultimately lands. So, Jevan, I might get you to flick over and I'll just summarize what some of these key changes are here. One of those is that we're moving from that unrealised TSB from start of the year to the end of the year into something that will look at a realised earnings approach. So the information that you get within Simple Fund 360 will be key here, which is why I said Jeevan and his team are going to be busy with the 2026 stationery and thereafter. I already touched on the fact that we're going to see two thresholds here at 3 million and 10 million, and the fact that those thresholds will be linked to the increases in the general transfer balance cap. So where we see $100,000 increments with the TBC, we're going to see 150% increase on the 3 mil and then a 500% increase on the 10 mil as well. And most importantly, we are seeing that start date being deferred from what was 1 July 2025 through to 1 July 2026. Now, there's not a lot of time for this to get through, which is why we're seeing this sort of closed consultation period happening right now whilst that drafting is being resolved. And then they expect to get this introduced into Parliament early in the new year. I note that February, the first 2 weeks of February, are sitting days. So they're really trying to force this through as quickly as they possibly can. So that means the next 6 months as we work through to the introduction of these measures is going to be really important for us to get that right with our SMSF clients and those other clients that might be affected by these measures as well. And the last thing I just wanted to sort of touch on, we're doing a fairly simple but substantial shift in the way in which our order forms will look. So we are integrating, in essence, a tabs function, and those tabs functions will be based upon whether you have a subscription or not a subscription, whether you need to invoke some legal review over that document, even in respect to workflow. So if you're passing that document through from maybe one staff member through to managers and that sort of stuff. So there's a number of features that we're adding into this. We've already started to roll this out on our platform at the moment, and we'll be putting that through on our BGL Docs platform from January 2026. So start to look out for that information early in the new year as well.
Okay, so on to December, where we're at now. So from a BGL perspective, we're releasing an update this week. I think it's on Thursday. So we just got a minor improvement there to the AI assistant. This will allow the ability for you, if you're asking any questions and need a hand from BGL support, rather than going and logging a support call, you can connect directly there with BGL support directly there from the AI assistant. So it makes that transition very good. And then with the work papers, we'll have the ability there for an additional reviewer. So an example where you need a manager review and a partner review, you will have that ability there within the work papers going through as well. Aaron, what are you doing in March next year?
Yeah, so we will, once again, as I touched on earlier, we'll be having our SMSF Day events again. So we've literally just launched that this week. So I wanted to obviously take the opportunity to share that information. So you can go on to our site, smartersmsfday.com smartersmsf.com/SMSF Day. We do have, in essence, our super early bird tickets that are available at the moment. So they're at $400 plus GST. So take advantage of that there. You can then see what happens from a staging point of view thereafter. We do go all around Australia each and every year. We are introducing a live stream as well, in particular off the back of the proposed Division 296 changes. It's naturally probably going to fall smack bang in the period that we're going to be super busy, but importantly, where the rubber will need to hit the road with a lot of your clients as well. So take advantage of the pricing that we have at the moment. It's the cheapest that it's going to be. We are just locking in some of our venues at the moment. We are somewhat hesitant of trying to lock those in just in case the numbers that we expect as they were a couple of years ago when the Div 296 tax measures in version 1 were there. So yeah, jump onto the site and you can find out more.
So get in early.
Absolutely.
Same with the BGL team, obviously, hopefully there's no clashes with dates, but
no, we did last year, but I think you're finishing and we're starting.
You'll check that out afterwards. But same thing, there is an early bird special if you book this side of the calendar year. So if you go to BGL's website, all the details are available there in terms of the locations and times, etc. I think the content should be available shortly as well. But as I mentioned, it's really around best practice from your BGL software. That's the